unmade Spielberg projects, and what could it be, and what should I shave, and what do I do? And I made all the wrong choices, by the way, because as soon as he told me, I put in my contacts and I wear glasses every day, and I did a straight razor shave. I was like, I'll try to look. And his dad had a really good 5 o'clock shadow. His dad wore glasses, so every choice I made for the meeting was wrong, except we just had a wonderful conversation, because as soon as he opened the door to talking about family, we just talked like people, and that's an area where I definitely can sort of meet him. It's something that's always meant a lot to me, and I'm not an actor who thinks they should play every part or even wants to, but once he told me what it was about, I did have a big feeling. I thought, I really hope I cast me for this, And we had a second Zoom where after I got to read the script, which was very beautifully written, him and Tony Kushner, I was very moved by it, and I felt like, oh, this is actually an important step for Stephen in his life and in his career, and that was exciting. And then we had a third Zoom, and I thought, and this took a while, and I thought, we had something that first Zoom, and when something takes that long, what does it mean? And the third Zoom was Stephen with an unlit cigar in his mouth, and he said, I think you'd make my dad proud. And I was like, oh my God. And so then I probably told you about it when we were catching up sometime, and you told me, and part of the fun of asking you to do this tonight and get to see Fabelmans was that Matt interned with Kathleen Kennedy, right?
Well, the story is weirder than that.
Yeah.
When I grew up in Santa Monica, and here in the 70s, there was a cable channel that was a local cable access. It was Theta Cable. And so there was a program that this guy put together called Air Your Shorts. And it might not be what you would think it was. They were airing short films. And I saw a kid's films who was my age. And at the end, he was being interviewed, and I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. I want my films on this show. Now, that kid was J.J. Abrams. And so I called up the show, and the guy was like, yeah. You can have your show, your thing on too, and you can meet this kid. I said, I don't care if I meet the kid. I just want my films on this show. And so he put my films on the show, and he's like, I think you want to meet this kid. He's your age. You'll like him. So I met JJ, and we became great friends. And then that guy ended up having a festival at the New Art Theater. And he showed, because it turned out that the only people who responded were young kids who made 8mm movies. So they showed our movies, and back in those days, the calendar section of the LA Times was like a very entertainment-based thing, and they had written up, the article has a picture of me and JJ and my friend Mark Sanderson, all with a little movie camera, and it says Beardless Wonders. And Spielberg was like, oh, I made 8mm films when I was a kid. I want to see these. And the guy who was the host of the thing, he had wanted me to sign something that I didn't want to sign. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to sign this, because this guy, I feel like he wants to own our movies, and we're like 13, like, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden, JJ goes, do you know that Steven Spielberg, he wants to see our films? And I was like, oh my God. So I called up Kathy Kennedy myself. I said, I'll get you the films. So he watched the films, and then, he really liked the films. But a year later, we got a call, and it was Kathy Kennedy calling again, and I was like, oh, hi. She goes, well, they found a box in Arizona in the house where Steven grew up. And it was a box that said Stevie Spielberg on it, and it was filled with 8mm films. Oh. And they had been sitting in that basement for many years, and it's very warm in Arizona. And she said they need to get repaired, and Steven was like, well, get those kids. Get those 2 kids. So JJ and I, he paid us $250, and we went through all of the movies and we respliced them. And one of the movies is Escape to Nowhere. It is that was a crazy thing for me seeing the movie. It literally is. The other one was a movie called Firelight, which I'm telling you is Close Encounters. It's incredible. I mean, and it was. I remember specifically JJ was like, oh my God, it said a Stevie Spielberg film at the beginning, or maybe Steve Spielberg, whatever it was not yet Steven. And JJ was like, we have to cut those frames out. And I was like, I don't know, we can't cut those frames out. Those frames are it's not broken. These are perfect sprocket holes. And to this day, he's really mad at me. But anyway, yes. So that was how I met them. So
That's a mic drop story. We should maybe just call it there.
No.
No, kidding. That's an incredible story. So Matt tells me this
Yes.
after and I just couldn't believe that nice little. I mean, it's so incredible and it's so sweet. I think, yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the process of this, right? Like the responsibility. Steven Spielberg comes to you. Does he say, "This is my father"? That's who that is, even though it's Bert. It's really Arnold. And then as you're getting, like, talk about that process of getting, first of all, the feeling of responsibility that you must have had in something that he was deciding to look back at in his life, and then the experience of how. What did he want you to do? Like, what did he share with you? What did he not share with you? What was the process like for you?
Yeah. So Arnold, the last scene of Bert's in the film that you just saw, we filmed on the 1-year anniversary of Arnold's passing, August 25th. So when Arnold, it might have been 8 months after his passing that I received this script to read. So that's pretty recent. And Leah had only passed. And by the way, at the end of the credits, the last thing you see is for Leah and for Arnold. We were up here, but she passed, I think, a few years before. I can't remember the exact number. It felt very clear in Steven's face what was at stake for him, in a good way. And I think that when your quote leader is that kind of open and vulnerable, even the crew seeing it brings a real energy. And it makes the stakes feel high in a good way. So not only was it a Steven film, but it felt like he's putting himself out there. So we began by Zooming and just talking. It was during the pandemic. It was just before we were all getting vaccinated. And so we were Zooming at first. And it was clear that, and Steven had the right instinct, Bert is Bert, and mimicry and imitation, right, is not part of the game. But I will say every week that we got closer, I could feel more of Arnold and Steven, and more emotion and more memory, like things just coming.
Would he share those with you?
Yeah, we talked together, but I also had access to his family archives. So photographs, recordings, home videos, not just old 8mm footage, and then his sisters would come and visit or come to set, and say, "Dad," and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't. That they would call me Dad at some point in the shoot was just so moving. And so I would say it was a really intimate experience in regards to getting to know Steven and getting to know his family, and then trying to take care of Arnold's spirit, but also, frankly, be true to what Bert was for this story, because it is largely true, but it had to be organized somewhat, meaning something that may have happened at 12 actually is 14 in the film, or like whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because it just has to have some, and the ultimate thing at the end of the day is to be there for the moment and try to give the audience something truthful that can make contact with them, or that they can make contact with. Hence, even though the closer we got to it, the more Arnold I wanted to bring or carry with me or embody, whatever. At the same time, it's like, okay, we'll have you just release all these months of preparation now into an honest moment, so that it has the best chance of making contact with the scene partner and the camera, and thus the audience. Yeah.
And I